very much. So we have a session on leadership, and I'm very delighted to welcome Jim Banister from Raisin. Jim and I have a very long history. We have met 2 days ago, and I can tell you he's a great guy with a lot of experience in leadership and product leadership. So listen carefully to the messages he's going to bring over to you. But before we do that, we want to start, of course, with a quick intro of Jim that he does for himself and for Raisin as a company. Then I will introduce myself and Adform as a company. And then we will deep dive into leadership in the context of product, marketing, sales, and leadership as a pure management challenge and opportunity itself. Over to you, Jim.
Awesome. So I'll give you a quick overview of the Raisin journey. So you have some context of where I'm coming from and where I'm sitting. It truly is a rocket ship. And that rocket ship was built by three former McKinseyans who were very focused, top of their game, very focused on the banking and financial industry. And they saw asymmetries and inequities, and they decided to do something about that to change the world, and did. And that distilled into essentially a vision, what still gives us light, what is core in our DNA today, around savings and investments without barriers. And so what does that mean? Savings and investments is wealth building and management products that empower Raisin customers. And then there are four constituents for the without barriers. The first is, of course, our customers, where we want to frictionlessly, delightfully, and eventually intelligently guide them to the best Raisin financial products that match their personal circumstance. And for the partner banks, which are the ones providing those deposit products, savings products, we want them to frictionlessly and reliably be able to integrate with Raisin to adjust their balance sheet. That's the reason they're offering these products. They're any kind of deposit product, whatever territories and whatever currencies they choose. And then our distribution partners, there we have big partners, N26 is one, for example, that want to integrate Raisin products into their offering for their customers to retain those customers and generate incremental revenue. And then finally, we don't exempt our own crew in terms of the mission, which is giving them the opportunity to safely stretch beyond their perceived professional limits and take advantage of the savings and investments without barriers, wealth building. And I can say with authenticity that our founders made sure that that was true for our employees. So it's pretty cool. And where we started was very small, right? And I wasn't there at the time. I've been there 2 years now. And it was a single product from a bank called T-Bank in Bulgaria, which was a 2.9% one-year term deposit. Pretty incredible, right? And that created a sprout immediately that by the end of year one was 200 million in assets under management in 5 banks on this marketplace platform. That's product market fit by any definition. And that created an upward spiral that has kept going for 8 years. Today, we're at more than 13 billion in assets under management in 100 banks. And there is an engine that drives this. And I know I'm mixing metaphors here. I got propellers and rocket ships, but they all create lift. So bear with me on that one. And essentially the engine is that we provide a platform where banks can provide more and competitive offers that attract customers who want to put their money into a pan-European deposits marketplace because they may not be able to find a reasonable place to put their money in their home country. Now they can find it pan-European. We're also now in UK and we're moving into the United States. So the whole engine, whether it's our operations teams and the core platform and our products, is about driving that, which is a two-sided marketplace, which has a supply side and a demand side. And the supply side, we drive more. We add more Raisin products. Now we have ETFs, investment and pension products. And on the demand side, we have more distribution partners, more territories, and more customer segments. So that's essentially the Raisin virtuous cycle, the engine that has created that lift, that rocket ship lift that is continuing to this day. And there's a bit of complexity in our business, so I'll speak to that a little bit. So how do we navigate this thing? It turns out that we have multiple business types and that have different dynamics, different problems, different solutions. And this is a sort of representation of that, where we have on one side the two-sided deposits marketplace, savings marketplace, where on the demand side it's B2B, B2C, and B2B2C. And it's also on the supply side, B2B, and we have similar complexity on the investment and pension products. So all our operations teams across all our countries and the actual product platform and technology platform has to support all of that complexity. And so it's quite complex, and we have to be pretty cross-functionally adept to do that. So where are we flying this thing? We're flying it to 100 billion in assets under management. Yeah, that's our North Star. And we're about a sixth of the way there, and we're accelerating. So it's going very well. And this is actually, we don't have a newer picture of this because of COVID times. This is almost 2 years old now, and that's me over there. And you can see more if you go to raisin.com or you go to raisin.co.uk. And if you're in Germany, you can go to weltsparen.de as well. And a quick shout out to Prezi Video. This is my alma mater, my former role before this one. That's what I'm using here to share, to embed myself in my content, and it works on all these different platforms. So that's it.
Great stuff, Jim. Thanks very much. And maybe before I introduce myself and Adform, which will be faster, but I would like you to say a few words about yourselves, because we have now learned everything about Raisin, but give us some insight who you are.
Well, I would say I'm a bit of a Forrest Gump. My career has been I'm not sure if it was fate or it was a leaf on the wind. Maybe it's a bit of both, as you said. And so all my career, I've been in the entertainment business. I was in the aerospace business, and I've been doing what it wasn't called product back then, right? Because I've lived a few decades. But I've been an entrepreneur and I've been an entrepreneur, companies like Warner Brothers, Tesco, but also companies like Prezi and Sayso and some others. And so I think the way I've distilled it, the thread is, working with merry bands of pirates, taking on naughty challenges, to provide value for customers, people. It could be entertainment or it could be a functional wealth building app like at Raisin. I don't know if that's helpful, but it's a pretty storied. If you go to LinkedIn, you can see you'd be like, this guy, what's this guy's deal? It's been a fun journey.
Yes, impressive journey, Jim. Thanks for that quick introduction. So a few words about myself, as I'm the moderator, and I'll humbly be shorter because this is very much about you and your experiences in Raisin. So my name is Boris Kurschinski again. I'm based out of Hamburg in Germany. I'm a regional president for Northern Europe at Adform. I have been here for 3.5 years. And we're actually a company with Danish roots, have been around, and I was just aware for about 20 years right now. Our core product, I hope you have heard of it, is Adform Flow, so enterprise technology built for modern marketing. And our platform is a very configurable, transparent, that's a big word in these days, and secure platform. Basically, it consists as core products of ad server, DSP, and a data management platform. So basically, we bring you into the position to do seamless management of your whole advertising campaign lifecycle. And the context in which you may have heard Adform a lot recently is, as I said, transparency of your advertising, see where your money goes, and then identity, which has become a massive challenge for the industry, as we all know, with the cookie crumbling. So stay tuned. We are very active on LinkedIn and give you the latest ideas on how you make your advertising future-proof. But back to us and back to leadership.
Yeah, so about us.
Yes. And we're starting a little bit with a general question, and that is about the marketing and product setup of Raisin and which benefits that brings. What would you say, Jim?
So I would start with that. We have I would say our marketing team at Raisin tends more towards the brand marketing, the relationship marketing side. We have a really strong brand affinity. Last time we measured our NPS, is, if you believe in NPS, it was around 73. And we have incredible, lifetime value that increases over time. So there's a real strong bond there. And some of that has to do with the core product and what we do for people to help them build their wealth. And some of it has to do with a marketing team that does a good job. And so we have the only sort of realm that product and marketing overlap in for relationship marketing is around who owns the brand, right? I mean, because we have a product essentially, and so this is a classic sort of chicken and the egg thing. Is it marketing that creates the brand? Is it us that create the brand? You know, it's a bit of a dancer, but it works pretty well, and it's much more intimate in the transactional marketing aspect, the CRM, SEO, SEM, you know, sort of growth mission, if you will. We do not have a classic growth team. That's principally because we're in the middle of a replatforming. We will next year because we're building a whole new platform for the future. And that's where we do, I would call it the deeper collaboration. And in fact, when I got to Raisin, I created a mission. Well, I didn't by myself, but I proposed creating a mission which was specifically to service Raisineers. It's called the Raisineer Experience Tooling Mission, right? RXT is what it's called. And so there was a lot of collaboration, deep collaboration, a pairing of CRM and product to go figure out what are we going to build to make sure that we have the best equipped transactional marketing teams in the biz. I don't know, am I answering your question at all a little, or I'm just sort of describing the relationship?
I think I get it. And I think the interesting thing when you look at companies that are breaking rules, that are bringing up new stuff, I mean, how do they do that? What is the secret sauce about that? And do the marketing guys go out and say, hey, we've got something great to sell, or is it more that there is a product team that is thinking about the future and potential new?
Yeah, so it depends on what we define as product, because for us, we have financial products and they don't necessarily directly correlate to a singular software product, if you will, right? There's, and so I would say that that the product market fit, the deposits marketplace, as I was describing, it caught fire like really quick, right? So marketing really doesn't, it's more about expanding the awareness of that, right? And then optimizing the journeys and so forth, as opposed to, and of course we do better, never best is one of my phrases, release management, so that as we're planning, and of course we do road mapping and capacity plan, quarterly capacity planning to make sure that marketing knows or has their input as to what they feel like they need as well. So that we can actually collaboratively figure out what to build and how to launch it and market it, essentially. I don't know if I'm answering your question though. Yeah, ish?
Well, yes, you are. And it brings me right to the next question, because about product leadership, how it relates to sales and marketing leadership. And you as a product leader, you're this chief product officer. What do you think about what makes a strong marketing and sales leader? Because these are the guys you got to collaborate with and that you have to make successful, and they have to make you successful.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't want to be flippant about the answer. You know, ironically, as you're saying that, I'm realizing that Burkhard, who is our CMO, and I have never had a conversation about leadership. Right. I mean, ever. Right. In fact, though, based on evidence of how he treats his team and how he treats our team, most of his interactions with my team are with my team. Most of my interactions with his team are with his team. And for me, that's a really good thing, right? That's a really strong thing. It's a more osmotic, I guess, less. I mean, we do this at the C level. We do the long-term planning, you know, setting objectives or curating objectives and so forth, and figuring out what the long-term strategy, amongst other leadership, functional leadership, and P&L leadership. We've never had a conversation about leadership style that I remember. I don't know, Burkhard, if you see this, if I forgot, I beg your pardon. So I would say that he and I work more on the OKR and capacity planning and road mapping level. And even then, our teams are working very, very, very tightly. And my sense is, even though we haven't had that conversation, is that he has a similar, you know, empower the teams, give them autonomy with accountability, and, you know, let them go. How does it work at yours? I mean, because, you know, you and I were joking the other day that that we're sort of the mongoose snake. There's natural friction between sales leaders and product leaders, or marketing leaders and sales leaders and marketing leaders, and not so much between the leaders. I mean, there's a natural tension there. How's it set up at Adform?
Yeah, I think it's a very fair question, because the industry we are in is extremely challenging and provides a lot of opportunities. And what does it mean? We have a number of big customers that, of course, have always good ideas and good feedback, truly good feedback on how to improve our product. So you have to find ways to bake this client feedback in and to prioritize it in. At the same time, you have a product vision, right? That you want to realize. And so the idea is, where do you bring the product? When you know that, right? When you're a small customer company, you're very often driven by the input of your few large customer and bring that in to make them really happy. And then there's the step where you evolve, and we've gone quite past that. So there is this product vision that you have to always pursue and make sure you bring into play. And then there's, of course, external factors, which sometimes come as a surprise, sometimes not. So what I said, for example, about the cookie crumbling, right? So how are we going to do audience marketing in the future, given that Firefox, Safari, and now also Google are crumbling the third-party cookie? So these are things that are happening in our environment, and that we have to bake in. And we're naturally we luckily anticipated this at the very early stages. But of course, you have to bake that into your planning, and you always play in this.
So it's like balancing the tactical needs of what's in front of you, as well as curating the signal and making sure you know where you want to go, to making the big bets, et cetera, and then balancing that. Is there some process or ceremony or framework that you guys use to do that? How do you do that?
So yes, we have a very clear framework. We have a product steering board that is deciding about the overall direction. We obviously have a roadmap that we're sticking to. And it's rare that we are surprised by trends, obviously. It is more that these marketing trends come in and then make us build our product and development activities.
What's the composition of that product, that board?
It's the product guys, it's the developers, it's our COO, who is very much in charge of the whole sales and servicing organizations. It's obviously also marketing as more as an executional role. So these are the guys, and then we also have a level where then the regions that we consist of 4 regions have a say and provide steady feedback to make sure that we have both the customer feedback all in and the vision being taken care of as well.
Yeah.
So cool. Interesting process, and one of the things I have to say, this is the fun part of being in a European company. I've been working for a number of US companies as well, and there, of course, you're much more far away from product management. And for these companies, the balance is more, okay, we have our home market in the US, which is huge. How do we make sure we are also serving the Europeans? And for us, it is being we are the core region of Adform, so that's of course a much more comfortable role to be in.
Yeah.
What we want to talk about leadership.
I beg your pardon?
Go for it.
I just wanted to just quickly summarize. So the framework we use to collaborate right now, we don't have a product board, although it sounds like we're very much set up like you. One of our co-founders, our COO, is responsible for operations and technology and product, right? So there is that kind of thing. So we have a sort of a de facto board, I guess, in the MDs. We have 4 MDs as well. And the way we do it is there's a ceremony framework for every sort of time frame. Right, there's a long-term strategy. There's a 1-year rolling roadmap, a 12-month rolling roadmap that gets refreshed. Then we have a 3-month capacity planning, which is about resolving dependencies and conflicts and figuring out how to match supply and demand. There's a demand for what we want to do, and there's only a certain supply of capability. And then, of course, we do sprint reviews, and we do monthly check-ins on all those things. So, yeah, just to
sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next chapter of our conversation. So far we have been with product, etc. But I mean, leadership. So you're a very experienced leader, Jim. How would you describe your leadership style? What's your leadership style?
So, it's changed over the years, of course. When I was a youngster, it was more command and control. I know better. And, I thought I was quick and these things, full of myself, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes I end up with confidence, but the way I describe it, Boris, is that now I have very high confidence in my pattern recognizer, right? Super high confidence in that something's wrong, or so there's an opportunity there, or that kind of thing. But as soon as all the possibilities collapse into a single choice, then I have very little confidence, right? I'm constantly questioning it, thinking about it, making sure that I'm, checking in on it and so forth, or helping others do the same. And so over the years, it's evolved into what now I call contextual leadership. So there's all manner of leadership styles, from servant leadership over here to command and control and surgical, things that you need to do, and everything in between. And the truth is that I found, anyways, that every one of them has a place, a role. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do for a team or a company is command and control, surgery, not therapy. Sometimes you don't want to do that all the time. If you're operating on the patient all the time, you're going to kill the patient, and nobody's going to want to work there. But sometimes it's the most compassionate thing to do. So basically, I work on better understanding when the right mode of leadership is required. And that's the thing that I practice the most. And it's alchemy. It's not perfect. It's not a science, but that's it. I would say that the second one is I treat the team as my product, right? So I love treating the product as my product, but I can't, right? That's their job, is to treat the product as their product. And so I treat the team as my product. And when I trained in Agile nearly 20 years ago, the people that trained me actually taught me Agile Enterprise. We were talking Agile Enterprise, which is how do you actually also apply it, not just to the product, but also to the team. It was pretty inspired back then. And that's what I do, right? And so our whole crew sort of does that. So we're pretty candid about our ceremonies. We set OKRs for improving ourselves. We, do the same kind of ceremonies. We do the retrospectives. We take them seriously. We distill action items, et cetera. So treating the team as a product allows you to step up and go to the meta layer, periodically, and say, how can we be better? And it lets us off the hook too, because then we can say to each other, well, why don't we try this for 3 months and see if that works better? It's never permanent. It's not like this massive, well, sometimes it's permanent, but it doesn't feel permanent. Then the third thing I think I would say is that I'm a visual leader. I love communications, from metaphors to Miro to Prezi to whatever. It's just one of my things. And many of my crew are way better than me at it these days. I think the last thing I would say, there's loads of things, right, that I could riff on. But the last thing I would say is, as I got older, I started to realize I was embodying my last name, the last name Banister, the English word. It's the thing you hold on to on a stairway as you, climb the stairs, of your career. And so that steadying, guiding influence combined with that contextual leadership style is sort of what I try to practice in my mind. Yeah.
I have a spontaneous question for you regarding the visualization, because I could obviously see that from the start when you were introducing Raisin. Was there anything in your career where it made click and you said, okay, I just have to do that more, or how did you get there?
Yeah, I always had a natural curiosity. I as a youngster, my physics degree was in optics, right? So it was all about light interacting with. I was always attracted to it, and then I ended up building in my first job for a company called TRW. It was an aerospace company. Computer graphics was just starting at the time. This is the 1980s. And so I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And so I ended up being able to start what's still there today at this company called the Engineering Visualization Center. And we did animation of really esoteric and hard to understand concepts. And so it started very early in my career, and it was just a thing. I'm actually working with one of our lead Scrum Masters right now. He showed an interest in, I'd like to learn how to make these mini videos and do these things, and I love that. So that's one of the things that anybody who wants time to learn how to do visualization, there's no better form of communication. And, impedance matching is what I call it, right? So people can consume more effectively. Yeah. Did I answer your question, Ish?
You did, and I mean, I can see it from my company. I mean, if you have something to present to the board, I mean, you visualize things and you get the message across, and they eat it very, very quickly. So I think it's a very, very efficient tool, both in presenting results, but also in
So what do
managing.
you use? I mean, you're on the Microsoft stack, right? So you use.
Come on, yeah. I'm not good at it, honestly. What I force myself is to use more graphs and images, etc. But I'm a complete amateur compared to you. But I mean, if you just put numbers on the board, normally the message isn't seen. You have to describe the message, and obviously it's a different ones when you allow people to use their eyes immediately.
Yeah.
But coming back to the topic of leadership, you were also mentioning a couple of behaviors where you were saying, okay, these are key behaviors that I'm applying and that you're also expecting from your leaders, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'd be curious to see what yours are too, frankly, especially given you have a different context. And actually, that's the first one is I tend to go to C words for some reason. I don't know if there's something to do with the English language, but the first one, and probably the most important one is for me is curiosity. Be curious is literally a practice. And when you're curious, what I found over the years, even if you're feigning it, right? Even if you're not curious at first, eventually what happens is your ego tends to drop, right? And if everybody's being curious, then it becomes a much more convivial kind of engagement. And so really be curious is a thing. So for example, a stakeholder comes and says, make it blue. And you say, well, tell me why you feel it needs to be blue. I mean, just really be curious. Why does it need to be blue? And then keep peeling away at that. And that curiosity is critical for me and a product person. The second one is context. Again, another C word. And context is, it relates to curiosity, of course, is because everybody's got their stuff, right? And especially in cross-functional teams, if you as a product person or an engineering lead or whatever aren't curious, aren't seeking the context of the other, how is this, for example, sales, right? Boris, we talked about this a little bit, is that sales is slogging around on the front line. And I've done sales. And so I know what it's like to be beaten down because the product failed in a demo or it doesn't have what they need. It's just like, it's a slog, it's brutal. And it's embarrassing sometimes. And product people and engineers don't have to deal with that really, right? And so that kind of curiosity and context, understanding the context, what's going on in that space and what do they need, leads to the third one, which is compassion. And compassion for me is not empathy. Empathy is more passive. Compassion is more active, right? It's about actionable empathy, right? So it's like, I feel you, man, and I'm going to do something to help you. I'm going to see what I can do to help you, right? And then the next one I think would be give credit, don't take credit. That literally is a practice. It drives me crazy. It's one of my, next to customer service treating me badly in any company. That's the one, where people taking credit, even if they deserve credit. It's like, that's for others to give, in my opinion. It's not for me to take credit. That's just a slippery slope that goes down. And then the next one is amplification, amplify everything. And I use the word amplify, not communicate, because for me, amplify implies filtering signal from noise.
Explain that.
So, yeah. So when we work in cross-functional teams, when we're in the heat of battle, et cetera, there's a lot of emotion that comes with the signal, right? I mean, there could be really true signal about what we need to build, what the issue is, how to solve the problem, et cetera. But when, it could be ego, it could be things going on at home, whatever it happens to be, right? So for my product people, what I ask them to do is, of course, share early, share often, amplify as much as possible, and do your best to find the root signal, right? Because we're constantly looking at the 360 degrees or 180 degrees of signal coming in from all the functional units and from the product itself and from customer research, et cetera, et cetera. And then when you're talking to humans, invariably there's emotion, right? And so, be curious, try and filter that, and then amplify that to the rest of the folks. And when you do that, it's not noise anymore, because people say that actually on Slack, right? They say, or on any one of these things, they say, sorry for the noise when I do this thing. So focus on filtering signal from noise. And then the last thing I would offer is, and this is a big thing for me, is language. I don't know, I couldn't attest to the science of neurolinguistic programming. I don't know, but I do know that our language affects our cognition, right? So for example, even simple things is that if somebody says blah, 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 and they say, but, and they move on, or I say something or somebody says something and then they say, but blah, 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 that essentially negates everything. It doesn't matter whether you're cognizant of the fact that they just negated everything that came before. And so gently asking, do you mean and, or do you mean but, right? These kinds of things are really critical, huh?
Totally. Don't think of a yellow bus. What do you do, right?
Yeah, precisely. You can't help it. And so, yeah, language is a big deal. And I'd be curious to know how you all do it, because if you don't share language, how do you share context, right? If you don't have a way, there's these cultural differences even inside a company between sales and marketing and product and engineering and so forth. And if you don't have something, and that's where OKRs come from and these kinds of things to try and do that. But how do you all do it at your company at Adform?
Yeah, I mean, a number of things that I would copy. And when you started to talk about context, curiosity, compassion, I thought this is why I like working in this industry, because this industry attracts so many people that bring them. And I would even say it's a requirement for people to be successful in this industry, because it's moving so fast and there are so many changes. There's so much innovation. There's dense competition. So you always have to walk around with open eyes and ears and understand what the next big thing is, what competition is doing, what trends we should be looking at. I mean, if you look at our industry, everything in digital advertising started with a banner somewhere on a desktop, and then it,
I was there.
Right. Yeah, see, me too. And you see, right? And then it became more formats on desktop, and suddenly you had the mobile devices, and we all have been joking around for 10 years now. It's the time of mobile, but then it came, and then we had video on mobile, and now we have much more audio stuff. You have digital out of home, and of course that is also driving new trends for advertisers. But there's a lot of technological challenge in there. And always new industry, you have to understand. The out of home people speak completely different languages compared to the native digital people. If I
That's
call
right.
them.
Yeah.
So learn, and there we're back to language, right? So have a good translator. Approach yourself, but also approach the expectations. So I know I don't quite answer to your question, but I think this is really fascinating about our industry, and of course it carries into our organization, because we have to be so precise and agile in order to be able to understand.
That's true. Yeah. So you're saying that you feel like some of the things that I'm identifying are more that people are self-selecting. Those kinds of people tend to self-select into this kind of industry because it moves so fast. It's fresh. You need to be curious. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah. And in the interest of time, so we're 6 minutes over, but I haven't seen that we have not received any questions so far. So
the hall monitor hasn't come in yet, but that's.
So if brand innovators don't stop, you guys just stop us, and if you don't stop us, we'll just continue talking, right?
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. So one of the things that we also talked about is the foundational elements of product leadership. What did come into your mind? What comes into your mind when you hear this term? You talked about the benefits of shared language.
Yeah, well, I would say it's probably the list that I gave, right? I mean, that's where I'd start anyways, right? To do that. So, I mean, I'll
But
give
let's move on. Why don't we move on? Because you were raising an interesting topic.
But can I share what just came up for me? So for example,
of course, you go for it.
Because you and I, when we were talking to each other, it's not on our agenda in terms of the questions. We were talking to each other. We're old enough to have been to multiple places, right, and been in leadership positions, you know, a lot of times. And this relates to the curiosity and context, right, and so forth. When you go to a new company, if you bring in, you know, what you think worked last time or worked the last 3 times, or you know, as whole cloth essentially, and presume that it'll just, you know, fit right in, I found with you know, great veracity that doesn't work, right? So, for example, what I showed that. Today at the beginning was a derivation of when I first started. I spent, you know, it was most of my own time, but I spent so much time interviewing all the different people to learn what is it we do, what's the mission, you know, et cetera. And then I turned it into a video, and one of the founders narrated that video, and it had some of the elements of what you saw. And that, of course, helped me learn it well enough so that I could teach it. And that goes back to the same kind of curiosity thing. Let's seek to understand, and then filter the signal out and amplify what's the root signal, right? And I feel like that's a really powerful and necessary trait, I guess I would say, characteristic. And you know, it's sort of what I expect of my the folks that work for me, because I treat every product owner as a mission leader. They are a mission leader, right? They necessarily are, even and a cross-functional mission leader. And what I try to do, and I encourage other product leaders to do this, is find times when you can treat your team as a hive. You know, I call it the hive CPO. And sometimes I'll bring in problems, or I'll ask them, I need you to solve this problem. You're going to be a CPO someday. Let's figure it out. What do you want to try? You know, and give them an opportunity to make a bigger decision to do that kind of, you know, thing. I see the hall monitor here. Lisa.
Yes. Lisa's going to stop us now.
I haven't been called a hall monitor before, but I loved it. It made me laugh when you said that a few minutes ago. Yes, I am here. I do feel a bit like a hall monitor when I appear, particularly in the middle of such an engaging and interesting conversation. So thank you, Jim and Boris. I had a question about Agile, which came up kind of mid your conversation. I'd love to get both of your thoughts on it. I am at the very start of my Agile journey, and I know we'll have lots of leaders on the call who are either using Agile, thinking about it, have heard lots about it, but aren't quite sure whether for them. And I just wondered what your one piece of advice might be to anyone thinking about moving to a more Agile model.
You want to go first, Boris?
You go first. You'll do.
Oh, man. Time to think.
Because I needed time to think as well.
I'm kidding. So I don't know if this is right or wrong or useful. The first thing that came up for me when you asked the question is 2 things, and they're 2 sides of the same coin. One is do whatever works, right? And the second one is don't be religious about practices. Full stop. Treat the adoption of Agile the same way that Agile teaches to treat your product, right? Learn fast and change, do more of what works, do less of what doesn't work for your personality. So you've heard these stories about Spotify, and everybody goes, yeah, we do the Spotify model and everything. And even the Spotify folks who we've spoken to, they were kind enough to come in and work with us a bit. Some of those folks, they said, we didn't intend that for other people. That was for us. You need to find your personality. So I would say, seek your personality of Agile. And even if it doesn't fit into the Agile principles, if you feel like, oh, why don't we try this instead? Try it. It may work for you. But try it for long enough so you can see whether it has efficacy or not, and just give it a go in that way. And then do a retrospective, look back, that didn't work, try something else, kind of thing. That's what I would say. Is that answering your question, at least from my perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's been so interesting to hear you talk about it. And Boris, I don't know if you're also working in Agile.
I would basically copy, and I have not much to add to what you say, Jim. I think being humble, looking at the superstars in the company that you're working with, and then taking the time to learn and review how you've done, I think is nothing more to add to that.
Fantastic. That's such a great note for us to end on, and thank you so much for closing our day on C-suite marketing and leadership. We have had a lineup of speakers. I hope everyone would agree. We started with David, if something is broken, be different. And then we moved on to Marion, who had a traffic light system for reframing a crisis, which I thought incredibly useful and timely. Arno, who talked about flexibility and culture, but remaining human. And then Jim, my favourite comment, I think, practice the alchemy of leadership. So I hope you'll agree. Fantastic speakers today. We hope you find Innovators later on today. They're having an influence marketing summit at 12 o'clock EST, where they'll be joined by marketers from the Ad Council, Duolingo, Sandals Resorts, Travel and Leisure, Google, USAA, and many more. So it just leaves it for me to say thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope to see you soon.